Odell Beckham Jr. saga, playoff implications, and some positive injury news coming right up. Stay tuned. What's up, Giants fans? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Tommy's Takes. I'm your host, Tommy G. Could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. Please like, subscribe, turn notifications on. If you like what you see, check me out on Twitter at TommyG105, dropping all the latest hot Giants content till the season is out and beyond. Please check out the Giants Country team doing the same thing. We all appreciate every single ounce of support out there. And here we are. A little bit of a slow week. Giants playing on Thursday night. No game on this weekend. So we're going to get into some pending issues. We're going to get into playoff implications, injury report, and most importantly, I'm going to do some user mailbag. I love my followers, subscribers. I love intertwining you guys into the show. That's one of the things that really makes me happy. And we're going to do it tonight. So thank you for tuning in. And we'll get right into the biggest news. Odell Beckham Jr.'s free agent tour is roaring. Feels like it's been going on for about a year now, but it's starting to dwindle down. He has a visit with the Giants scheduled Thursday and Friday. Did have a little bit of a mishap on an airplane. Seems that didn't want to comply, something with his seatbelt, and they kicked him off. So not something you really want to see when you're kicking off your free agent visits that you waited a year for. But we don't know the real details, so we're not going to nail OBJ for that. Main thing comes down to, can the Giants make it happen? Is this a possibility? Everybody always longs for, yesteryear and the better times, so to speak, especially offensively. This Giants offense has been broken for about 6 years now. I tweeted it out the other day. The highest the Giants offense has been ranked in points per game in the last 6 years is 17th. So Giants have some offensive problems, and it goes way back. And Odell could provide that spark, but can it happen? If you think about it, it's down to the Giants, it's down to Dallas, and it's down to Buffalo. So when you actually look at a decision like this, a big decision, you're going to weigh three things. First is going to be the money. And this is where I think is the biggest issue for Odell coming to the Giants is that money. Where does the money come from? Giants have around $2.5 million in cap space. There's nobody to kick the can with other than Kenny Golladay, and they do not want to kick that can. That can has been kicked down. They want to kick that can out, not down. So the money to me is going to be the biggest issue. He's not going to come here and sign for a vet minimum and forego a signing bonus. I'm not sure how they'll work it. I'm not especially a cap guru. I'm sure if they want to make it happen in the worst way, they can. Joe Shane doesn't really strike me as the type to leverage the future, mortgage the future, however you want to say it for a player. But when your offense is desperate, when your quarterback is starting to struggle because there's no weapons out there, you might just have to do it. You might just have to say, hey, you know what? We're gonna backload this thing to the max, and we're gonna make it happen. It's gonna be interesting because Dallas can offer more, Buffalo can offer more, and when you really look deep in this thing, that brings me to my other point: is what does Odell want? Where does he want to go? None of us could really argue Dallas and Buffalo are in better positions than the Giants are to win a Super Bowl in a shorter time frame. I mean, as far as this season, Giants are in the playoff hunt. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But realistically, roster-wise, Buffalo almost got there last year. Dallas has been a perennial playoff team. So if OBJ wants to win and wants to win strictly and they can give him a bigger deal, I don't think there's going to be any sentimental value from him to the Giants, honestly. And it would be nice to have him back, especially when Giants are struggling for weapons. But again, if he can get a lot more money and a better chance to win with Dallas or Buffalo, he's going to be in Dallas or Buffalo. And that brings me to my final point about OBJ. How's the player? How's his health? He's torn his left ACL twice. Hasn't made a Pro Bowl since 2016. He did flash with the Rams last season. You've seen him in the Super Bowl. Looked like he was on his way to winning Super Bowl MVP in that game. But you really don't know. You really don't know. Twice torn ACL. Obviously, medical advancements now are ridiculous, so you could heal a lot quicker. But do you see that same explosion? And it makes it even harder because you have to sign him to a deal based on what you don't know. You don't know how he's going to be off the second ACL. I heard it was a good thing because the first ACL surgery he had didn't go so well. And they needed to do a second ACL procedure, which obviously they couldn't do unless he tore it. And they did a second ACL surgery, which was in the winter time of this year, and everything came out great. So health-wise, everything on paper seems that it's like it's doing well, but you just don't know. And when you bring a player like OBJ on the team, someone who has a bold personality, that's a celebrity, that's a bit of an icon, so to speak, got to be careful. And you see with this airplane incident, it's everywhere. It's on every news channel, every content creator, every media provider. So you also have that part of it. It's not just a random skilled receiver that you're going to bring in that you think can benefit the offense. There's Odell Beckham Jr. So to me, it comes down again, money, opportunity, and how healthy is the player, and how much do teams want to give him based off that health, right? I, for one, do want the Giants to sign him. I think this offense is stagnated. It's hard to see them even winning another game for the rest of the year with the way this offense has started to play. And I think he gives that spark. And if Joe Shane is really still looking at re-signing Daniel Jones, you might want to give him a hand here because he's starting to struggle as well. You're starting to see Jones' intermediate short passing accuracy go down. And that might not just be on him. That could be on his receivers not getting open, not running the routes properly, timing being off. There's a lot that goes into that. That's why when people post screenshots of Jones missing a receiver, of Jones missing a pass and saying, look how bad he is, there's a lot more that goes into that screenshot that you're looking at. So be careful with that. But I think the Giants should make a push. I don't think they should leverage the future at all for Odell because you just don't know. And Joe Shane is on a good pace here. Didn't make a move at the trade deadline, still has all his trade assets, has a nice cap number. I think the Giants are fourth in the cap dollars 2023. So Joe Shane is set up with almost a clean slate. Still have the Galladay contract, still have to decide what you want to do with him. You also have your own players you're going to need to sign coming up in the Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Dexter Lawrence, Julian Love, and the list goes on. So that's where we're at with the Odell Beckham Jr. saga, to be continued. Next up, Giants playoff push. This is it, right? 11 games in the book for the New York Giants. Nobody thought the Giants would be playing meaningful football in December. It doesn't quite feel like it for some reason based off the little bit of a losing streak they've had, how they've struggled, obviously, in Dallas. They come out in the first half, they play well, they're leading 13-7, and then just kaput in the second half. So a little bit of a weird feeling around the Giants here. Started 5-1, 6-2. Now you're staring at 7-4, and you have a Commanders team coming up that is now 7-5. So the Giants could actually be facing a situation where they need to win next week to stay in that playoff race. Now, keep in mind, 7 teams make the playoffs. 7 playoff berths are available. And Giants are the 6th seed right now. They're 3rd in the NFC East. And, it's tough. It's a tough schedule. Giants have the number 1 hardest remaining schedule coming up. You have Washington coming up this weekend. You got Philly. You stay home for Philly, so that's 2 straight home games. Then you go 2 straight road games. Washington, Minnesota. Minnesota's been a powerhouse all year. Come home for the Colts, and then you finish the season on the road versus Philly. If I were a betting man, I would bet that the season comes down to that last game in Philly. Would be very fitting. Many a Giants season has come down to, final games versus Philly. And it's going to be tough because, this Giants team, the injury bug is just, I hate to keep beating a dead horse with a stick, but this injury bug is just outrageous for this Giants team. And we'll get into the injuries now. You're going to start seeing some positive news here. You have only injury out of the Dallas game was Cordell Flott. He's in a concussion protocol. He still might play versus Washington. You have Evan Neal most likely coming back versus Washington. You have Bredesen most likely coming back versus Washington. Aziz, I would say 50-50 chance he comes back versus Washington. Daniel Bellinger's also been getting better. I don't think you see him for Washington. Maybe for Philly. Maybe that's an opportunity for him to get back. But still, if you can get Neal, Aziz, and Bredesen back, that's huge. And the Giants are going to need it. Washington's playing inspired ball. And you need, listen, if you can get your right tackle, a guard back, and defensive end, you see Kayvon Thibodeau's getting a lot of attention on his side. If you could bring Aziz in there, have him take some attention away from Thibodeau, maybe he starts clearing some of those sacks finally because he's getting close. So some positive injury news, but still, this team has lost a lot. That's not coming back. A lot of ACLs torn on this Giants team. So they're going to have an uphill battle. I think the Giants can make the playoffs personally. If I were to have to look at it through a microscope, I would say they split with Washington. They take the Indy game at home. That leaves them realistically probably needing one more victory. And I think they can split with Philly. I think it's going to be hard. Philly is a really, really good team. Giants don't match up particularly well with them. But if the Giants can start getting some of these players back and they could split with Philly and Washington, they're just going to really need that Indy game. 10 wins will seal this. Remember, again, there's 7 playoff seeds available. So that's something I would keep an eye on with the 7th playoff seed. Might even be able to get in with 9 wins. It all depends. Washington's cramping that idea a little bit now by winning. But we'll see what happens. Either way, there's competitive football for the Giants in December. And if I were to tell you that at the start of the season, you'd have been like, Tommy, your takes are trash, because that's not happening. Well, here we are. December's on the cusp. Giants will be playing Washington Sunday. Giants at 7-4. Washington at 7-5. Doesn't get more competitive in December than that. Now, my favorite part of the show, we're going to get into some user mailbag. Before we do that, I do want to say thank you to every single user, follower, subscriber, whatever you want to call it. You guys really mean the world to me. Keep me pushing. You know, this has always been a dream of mine to create content, especially Giant content. And to see that you guys and gals are receptive, enjoying it, engaging it, really means a lot. Keep hitting that like button. Keep dropping comments. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. You know, I'm the guy you want to root for. You know, I remember being a kid, and after some of these games, I would look into a fake camera, and I'd have little scribbles on my notepad, and I would talk about the game. So thank you for helping a kid live his dream and get this content out. And no further ado, we'll get into the first question. This question comes from Daryl. He asked, would you prioritize wide receiver and inside linebacker over best position available? That's an excellent question, Daryl. Thank you for the question. I would say no. In my experience with the draft prep, draft research, you go for best player available unless you're ridiculously stacked at that position. Because when you start to reach and you start to prioritize, it was the word you used, that's when you start to say, okay, player A, he has this problem, but maybe we could fix it. Or player B has this red flag, but we need a wide receiver. It'll be okay. That was a one-time thing. So when you start to reach and you start to go for need, you get yourself in trouble, Daryl. So I want to stay away from that. I'd go best player available. It'd be awesome if best player available was a wide receiver or inside linebacker. 2 biggest needs on this Giants team by far. Some people might say quarterback. I don't think the Giants will be in a draft position to take one of the young quarterbacks. I do like Anthony Richardson's game. I said that this week on Twitter. I do think he's going to be a very good quarterback in this league. Probably needs another year to develop. But I would say go with best player available, and you can't usually go wrong. Because even if that player backfires and he turns into a bust, you did your due diligence. That was the best player in that spot, and you took him. That was the safe bet. Now, some people may say, hey, roll the dice. Don't go with the safe bet. All good. To each his own. I go best player available. I think that way you keep yourself out of trouble. You take the most talented option, especially if you're picking 15 to 20 range, where it's looking like where this Giants team is going to pick. Definitely want to jump on best available. But thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Great question. Now we're going to go over to my brother, Mark B. Mark B is a very special follower of the show, one of our #1 supporters. So from the heart, thank you, Mark B. Appreciate you. He's a diehard Giants fan. He wants to know, how can Odell impact Kafka's offense, the locker room, and the city? It's a good question, Mark. As far as the Kafka's offense, I think that's easy. You know, you put Odell out there. You have Odell on one side. You have Darius Slayton on the other side. You have now 2 guys that can get over the top. Regardless of Odell's injury, he's shown that he can get up over the top. He could win 50-50 balls. You know, that's not going to be his main thing he does, but he can win 50-50 balls. And it allows you to do some different things. You know, now you don't have a practice squad guy out there that you don't trust. So it allows you to get more into timing on offense. It allows you to do a little more with adjustments at the line. When you have a known, experienced, tenured wide receiver like Odell, and just doesn't have to be he's super explosive, he's super great. He's smart. He knows adjustments. He knows the game. He knows the ins and outs. So just putting a veteran receiver like that on the field puts a little bit comfort at ease for Daniel Jones and the rest of the offense. Now, as far as the locker room, listen, I've never really heard of Odell being a bad locker room guy. Obviously, he's had some incidents in the press. Obviously there was issues with the Giants the first time around. The interview with Josina Anderson, Lil Wayne, Odell's father sharing a video of owner John Maris slamming a chair. But I've never heard of anything of Odell being a bad teammate, not supporting his teammates, except for that Eli interview, which I totally disagreed with. I think that with the video his father shared got him shipped out of town. But hey, this is years and years ago now, right? This is a more matured Odell. Obviously, he's had a kid. I think he would be fine in the locker room. I think he would be embraced. I actually think it would be something that the Giants would need, a little bit of personality, swagger, flavor, whatever you want to call it. I think that would be huge for the locker room, and the city would love it. New York City would love having Odell back. I know he loved playing in New York City, and the city embraced him. So, Mark, I think if Odell came back, I don't see a lot of negatives in it at all, unless they give him some exorbitant contract that the team can't afford. So, thank you, Mark B. Appreciate you again for the support. You're the man, brother. Now we're going to go to another one of our top followers, subscribers, my man Ruben. Ruben is a great dude, knows a lot about the Giants, knows a lot about the team, and has a really great question here. What adjustments do we think Kafka's going to make, coming out of this little mini bye week? And I think there's a couple things you're going to see, especially with Neal and Bredesen probably coming back. You'll see a little more trust in the O-line, so you see a little bit more read options. You'll see a little bit probably, I think, my personal opinion, you're going to see a little bit of two-back sets. You've seen it a little versus Dallas. You're going to see Saquon out there, Breida out there. You're going to continue to see a little bit of Gary Brightwell. He ran like his hair was on fire versus Dallas. It was a stark contrast seeing Saquon run, struggle right into the line tackle, then Brightwell hitting those holes. I think a lot of that, too, is the defense doesn't key in on Brightwell and Breida. But I think you'll see more multi-back sets. I think you're also going to see a little less blitzing probably from Wink coming out of this, the Dallas game. Wink is going to blitz. Giants are the number one blitzing team in the NFL. That's not going to change, but I think you might see it scale back a little bit, especially if Azeez Ojulari returns. Now you have a competent defensive end on that side to match up with Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, and Leonard Williams, and you hope to generate some pressure with the front four. You live and die by the blitz, and the Dallas game was no better example. Giants blitz the heck out of Dallas in the first half. A lot of blitzes hit. Dak threw a couple interceptions. Defense only gave up 7 points. The second half was a total opposite. Blitzes weren't hitting home. Darnay Holmes, Cordell Flott were getting burnt in man-to-man coverage, especially Darnay Holmes in the slot. So I think you might see a little bit less blitz if Azeez is back. And stop running on second down. Enough with the runs on second down. It's become so predictable running on second down. Mix it up. I'm not an offensive coordinator by any stretch, but mix it up on second down. Go against your team tendencies. And that's another good point because, when you have extended time off, and the Giants have had, 11 days off since Thanksgiving, self-scout. And if you self-scout, you'll see you run it way too much on second down. It's way too predictable. So I look for the Giants to flip that trend as well. Those are some of the adjustments I look to see coming out of this little mini break. Again, Ruben, appreciate you, brother. You're one of our most loyal followers, especially for Giants country. And Patricia, you're always there, always great commentary. You always share your thoughts with me after the game. So really appreciate you, brother. Thank you for your support. And that was an awesome question. Great questions. Let's see if maybe we could see if we could squeeze another one in here, maybe another one or two. And again, please like, subscribe, turn notifications on. If you haven't subscribed, please do that. We're creeping towards 500 subscribers in a pretty short amount of time. Thank you for that. And comments. I feel like our videos don't get a lot of comments or as much as I would like to see. And I want to engage with everybody out there. That's important for me when I do this. So let's see what else we got here. Let's go. It's a good question. So this comes from Danny Dimes, M. Dean, Angelus 44. It's a good question. Who is your favorite Giant of 2022 and why? And who is your favorite Giant of all time? So my favorite Giant of 2022, I would have to say probably is Dexter Lawrence. I think Dexter Lawrence has been magnificent. Finally moved over to nose his natural position where he should be. I think Dexter Lawrence has been awesome and really, really excited to see his continued growth. He's already one of the best nose tackles in the game. So that would probably be, the player that I've really looked at this year that's taken a leap. Favorite Giant of all time? That's a great question. That would have to be Eli Manning, two-time Super Bowl MVP, Captain Clutch, Mr. Fourth Quarter Comeback. Can't be anybody else but Eli Manning for me. I know a lot of fans who pick Lawrence Taylor. Can't go wrong with either one of them. So good question. We'll go with Kelly Fisher. She says, do you see the Giants opening up the offense in the coming week? Do you think Wink blitzes less against Washington? I did just get into that, Kelly. I think Wink dials back the blitz, especially if Aziz plays. As far as opening up, it all depends. It depends on the offensive line. Depends if Neal and Bredesen get back. If they do, like they're supposed to, I think they will open it up. But a lot of variables go into that. Next one comes from Master P at Marquise Oscar 1. How would you feel if the Giants traded up for a quarterback? That's a great question. A little far out for that question. I'll probably answer that a little more in detail after the season. But hey, listen, if you're Joe Schoen and you want to move on from Daniel Jones and you've identified your guy in the draft, you do what you have to do to go get him. You don't cut any corners. You got to trade up. You got some extra trade collateral from the Kadarius Toney trade that you can mix around with. So I wouldn't be surprised. And if I like the guy, I'd go after him. And last question, and this is from Brody at It's Giant Season. Brody's a big-time supporter, friend, up-and-coming content creator. You guys check out Brody. His ad is It's Giant Season, SZN. Awesome content, and I had a great question. What is your favorite move that Joe Schoen has made? And are there any moves you really just don't agree with? So that's a good question. I would say my favorite move that Joe Schoen has made would be the Kadarius Toney trade for a couple reasons. One, Giants need draft capital. Let's be realistic here. 3rd and the 6th is huge next draft, especially if you want to trade up and get a quarterback. Those 2 extra picks are going to be huge. I don't think Kadarius Toney was ever going to work out here. It was bad for both parties. The longer they held on to him, I think the issues would have started to arise. Probably would have started to see some of the things come out about what was going on. Obviously, he's hurt again already with Kansas City. We don't wish that on him. I hope he has a prosperous career. But I think that was a good move by Joe Schoen. As far as worst move, really hasn't been a lot. I would say the drafting of Wan'Dale Robinson in the 2nd round was a little curious. Very similar to Kadarius Toney in their game, size, stature. Obviously makes a little more sense now that Toney's gone. But I always kind of question those smallerish receivers in the NFL, especially in today's NFL where 6'5", 300-pound linebackers could run a 4.4, 4.5. But obviously Wan'Dale showed some game. Really stunk his career game, 100 yards receiving, tore his ACL. But, to go back on that, I personally like a bigger body receiver, a George Pickens. Someone's body's going to hold up a little. Again, that's not why Wan'Dale tore his ACL. That's a freak injury. Could happen to anybody. You can't blame that on his size and stature at all. I would have probably went for a bigger receiver. That's just me. Otherwise, I think Joe Schoen has done a great job. And while we're on that subject, I did want to touch on that. Starting to see a little bit of negativity pointed towards Joe Schoen. Not sure why. A lot of Giants fans wanted him to trade for a wide receiver at the trade deadline. Obviously, the right move was to stand pat. Half the receivers that were supposedly being traded didn't get traded. The other half were overcompensated ridiculously. And I don't think Giants fans would have liked that. Because, it would have helped the offense, would have helped Daniel Jones. But, you got to be careful when you're giving away valuable assets just to sign guys to big contracts. That's how you get yourself in trouble. So I think Joe Schoen is just working with the scraps he was given. I think he's done a great job so far. With general managers, hard to really assess them on their job, less than a year in. I think everybody needs to take a breath. The fact that this team is at 7 wins right now with this roster is miraculous. And that's not just a testament to the coaching staff that's did a great job. It's been Joe Schoen too, bringing in players off the fly. Fabian Moreau, right? Jalen Smith, Marcus John, whoever it is, he's went and he's picked up players on the fly, last second, off the street, and they played meaningful snaps, and they've helped keep this Giants team intact. So, shout out Joe Schoen. I think he's done just fine. I think this time next year we might have a little better understanding of his mindset, his approach, and that's it. That's it for today's show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Obviously, all eyes on Odell Beckham coming up this week. All eyes on the Giants coming up. Big game in Washington against Washington. Big playoff implications there. So, thank you for tuning in to Tommy's Takes. Again, please like, subscribe, turn notifications on if you have already. Thank you. Till next time. Peace.